Which build do you use? Is that the same as I have?
I don't think anything's changed with the Rev build.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think so.
Like, Herald didn't really have any major changes.
Yeah, you got the same build as I did.
I was not able to cast skill 2 behind me.
Yeah,
No,
not
for
anymore.
For hammer,
not anymore.
But it has to be in front of you.
Hammer
Yeah.
2 used to deal so much damage. It was ridiculous. Now it's only once. It doesn't stack.
Yeah.
Okay, so welcome to Rev Training. I'll be your host with Steve. Steve's gonna join us. He's hosting.
Hi, Quaggy.
Hi,
Thank you.
Quaggy.
Anonymous.
My name is Steve. First time Rev player.
Welcome to Revs Anonymous.
Long time Rev player. First time Guild Wars player. Hello, everybody.
First time teacher.
Alright, so this is Rev. Rev is your long range spike and big melee spike burst damage class. And you want to be running a hammer and sword as your two weapons. For gear for this class, you want to be running basically full berserker, and if you are uncomfortable with the class or starting out new, it's fine to throw marauders into it. So that way you can survive a little more. So having a little bit of marauders in the build will just help you out, just to stay alive a little longer. So, for Rev, your main goal is to apply spikes at a location that the commander calls out. So he's calling in a push or a well, a pull or a well, and then you want to use a certain hammer skill. Or when we're about to go into a melee push, you're gonna swap to your sword, and you're gonna do a melee spike there. And then that's your goal. And outside of that, you're gonna be applying group stab and a couple group boons and super speed. So we're gonna go over. Sorry, go on.
Quick question: by spike, you mean spike in DPS, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Spike DPS damage.
Yeah, the starting rotation will be in your hammer, which is basically when we make our first push, you do your Coalition of Ruin, which is hammer 2, and you click it once, you aim it with your mouse. You'll see the little indicator, and you have to do it, and you cannot do it behind you, so you have to be facing the which direction. So that's basically your big damage spike, and after that, when we're going into melee, you swap to sword, and dwarf. You put down your roads, and you do sword 4, which is an emote to keep them in the necro wells. And you turn on your vengeful hammers. And you can either, mostly it's just auto attacks with the swords.
Try not to do unrelenting assault in the middle of this verse.
Yeah, and
So,
do not use sword 3. It doesn't do shit for damage, and it can teleport you into a Zerg and kill you.
Can it teleport you inside an enemy portal too? Like, I think that happened to Banana Can or something.
I have no idea,
it.
actually.
We got it on video, and I was like, "Holy shit! He just teleported outside."
Yeah. It's mainly good for, like, single target. Because that's what it does all the damage to, because it makes you jump around otherwise.
Okay, so for Rev, with your two skills, you have sword, and hammer. Hammer is your long-range burst, and sword's your melee burst kit. On hammer, your hammer 1 you want to have on auto attacking. So I believe it's control right click is to turn it on auto attack. So you want to always be auto attacking when you're not doing anything. It's the best way to just continue doing damage while doing main like Zerg hiding around. Just having that on auto target will just help you with your brains. You don't have to think about things and have it automatically go. Control right click is how you turn auto attacking on for the skill. So yeah. Hammer 2 is called Coalition of Ruin, and we'll go over when to use it. But that ability is a 3-stage attack where it will send out 1, 2, 3 pulses of it in a straight line in front of you, and it only works in front of you, so whichever way that your character is facing will use it.
I mean, you can go off. I mean, I meant like a really obtuse angle.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be exactly in front of you.
Yeah. It's like a cone view kind of thing.
Hammer 3 is an evade, but it's our main long damage, long distance spike ability. It will send you forward, and then at the end of the channel, it will do a burst damage. And the whole entire time you are stuck in place and you're evading. So you just gotta remember that you will be returning back to the spot that you initially started it at.
Yeah.
Hammer
So,
4
so
is an
do not
ability
wade
that-
with it.
Yeah.
If you swap weapons or cancel it, will it finish it?
Yeah, it will cancel it.
That's right.
Yeah, weapon swap does cancel it.
Yeah, it cancels but doesn't finish the skill. So
Well,
you
because
won't-
I just weapon swapped.
And it does
right
put it
there.
on cooldown.
Didn't I weapon swapped, but it didn't swap weapons. It just kind of like brought me
It'll-
back and just so everybody
Yeah.
knows.
It works very much like the NG, you know, when we were practicing blasting stealth the other day with Acid Bomb. That's how it kind of works. It'll cancel the skill, put it on cooldown, and you won't get any benefit from the use of the skill.
Hammer 4 is a field that goes in front of you. It's actually a darkness field, so if you had it popped up and you're moving forward, it will do lifesteal.
And it does block projectiles. Or it absorbs
Blocks
them.
projectiles. And
Or
so
blocks, yeah.
in group scenarios, if we're at long distance range and we're doing some sort of like kite, occasionally popping that as like a deterrent of other people's projectiles will help the group. But you gotta remember that the entire goal of Rev is energy management. And so if you look above your bar, you'll see a energy bar, and it should say 50% because while we're not in combat, it stalls at 50%, and while you are in combat, it has the possibility of going up to 100%. Each one of your skills, utilities specifically, can drain energy and take energy, and a couple of your skills on your bar that's not your auto attack will drain energy. So spamming is something that you want to be careful of when you're doing this. So try not to spam too many of your non-auto attack skills. Hammer 5 is a blast and a knockdown. It doesn't do any damage, but the utility behind it, it's what we use it for. So for a clear example of what we use Hammer 5 for is when we're blasting stealth. HOs will say pull stealth or like blast stealth, and that's our one skill that you want to use. You don't want to use your phase smash, which is also a blast. You want to save that for when we're doing spikes. So
Pretty much
our
like
only
smalls,
skill,
yeah.
Our only skill that we're worrying about for doing stealth is drop the hammer, which is Hammer 5.
It's also not purely used for blasts. You're more than welcome to use it in our range spike calls.
Only problem with the ranged spike calls is you don't want to use it as your initial, because the initial damage comes from phase. So if you're going to use
it
that
second.
phase first and then drop the hammer second.
You want us to use it as CC when you do pulls?
Yes.
I know the timing is really difficult, but
Yeah,
at least try.
Yep, so basically, like Quaggy was saying, is I want you to do Phase Smash first, and then if they're still in the damage field, drop the hammer. Scourges theoretically should be stripping any kind of boons using their Shade Summon and their F2, which the F2 is a boon rip, meaning that there is a less likely chance that they will have Aegis/stability in that time where you drop the hammer on top of them.
Yeah. So let's swap over to Sword and we'll go over Sword's abilities. So the auto attack on Sword, you can set it on auto attack at the same time if you wanted to, or you could just have it as like automatically spamming, like if you're used to it. Sword 2 is huge spike DPS, but I believe it's single target. No, it's 5 targets.
It's
5
ideally
targets.
single target.
Yeah, I do.
Ideally, you want to just find something squishy that's near you and use it on it. The way that it works is it will actually send out 3 bolts, right, to its nearby area. I'm pretty sure it was, no, that was with Shiro. Anyways, it just does a small AoE damage. It's very high damage, really nice for when you're going in. Sword 3, just put that one out of your mind. Don't try your best not to click it. It's really hard to pull off a combo with that ability, and what it does is it tracks people on a trail, constantly evading around them and doing damage. But what's the problem with the skill is when you lock onto someone, you move around and travel with them, so you'll end up getting pulled from the group, which is what you don't want to do. So do not use Sword 3 unless you're like super sure that you'll be able to get something down with it. Sword 4 is the bread and butter of the melee push that we're going to be. So every time that we melee push, that's the initial that you want to start with on sword. Not the initial starting damage, but on sword itself, that's what you want to use first every time. It's huge damage, but the most key important thing with it is that it does a mob. and then that will lock people in place, allowing for more DPS to occur on them, and it just follows with high DPS. Sword 5 is a small teleport with high DPS, and that's is really good when you find a squishy target. So something like a Scourge or an Ellie, or even like another Rev. If you see someone that's below 50%, don't be scared to use Death Strike on them. You can hit some people up to 8 to 10k sometimes, and you can get them insta down, and that's a down for the group.
Is it worth doing like a 5 and 3 just to down someone if you do have someone, do that combination? Because I know you said like Void 3.
Yeah, so if you can time the way the Unrelenting Assault works is you're evading for 1.5 seconds. So when you do 5 to 3, if you know that you're going to get them down within that time frame and they're going to sit there, you can use it. The point why you want to avoid 3 is just you don't want to get dragged outside of the group on accident.
I was just thinking about cleanup when they're on the run.
Yeah, if someone's running away, like maybe we're cleaning up a group and there's no way that they're going to attack, you can use 3. But that's as long as you know that you're safe.
Sword 5 is also a double strike, so try not to spam it too quickly. So you can get a double hit.
Okay.
Utilities.
So, now we're going to go over some utilities. Your ranged utilities come pretty much from using Herald, the Legendary Dragon stance, because there's 2 stances, Legendary Dwarf stance and Legendary Dragon stance. When you're in Hammer, and we're not going to melee push, you want to stay inside Legendary Dragon stance. And this will give you access to a bunch of facets, and these will give AoE boons to the group. And so what I would recommend, first off, is every time that you're inside this facet setup, is to pop your heal facet, but don't double click it, because you want to single click it so that way it's up, and then you can hit it again in case you get super high spiked, and then you'll be able to heal back up. So how the heal works is when you have it popped, there's a time frame where any damage that you receive, you'll be healed by it. And so that's why you want to have it popped each time that you're inside the dragon stance. That way, at a moment's notice, you can hit it and save yourself from getting spiked to death.
By popped versus hit.
So if you hit one of your utilities and then it changes the picture, that's just popping.
Yeah, each facet pretty much has like 2 abilities. It has, when you first open it, so like say for the heal one, it gives you regen, and when you use it, again, that's when you get your full heal if you're being attacked.
The
So
second
one will give
skill
you
looks
bonus-
like
yeah.
someone's praying almost. Like that's the picture that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, every facet has like 2 uses, 2 different things.
The next one over, which I believe for you guys, because I have mine different, it's for Atros' screen, I guess we'll go Atros' screen. Facet of Elements is what Atros has next. That one, when you pop it, I believe it's Swiftness, yeah.
Swiftness, yeah.
And when you are going to hit it again, it will come up with a little AoE field, and it does AoE damage. And that's just extra damage that you can use to put on downs, or you can put on top of walls, or you can put on top of a spike if we're close enough to that long-range spike that Atros is doing. It's a very, very well done skill, yeah.
I'm surprised. Does that mean you don't want us to always give Fury to the squad?
We're getting to that.
Okay.
So next one over on Atros is Facet of Darkness, which is the Fury. That's another skill that's you want to basically have your finger ready on it. So when it's popped and you get CC'd, you'll be able to click it and it will stun break you. And that one is also really nice because you'll be able to give group Fury. It's very iffy with how you work this like facet. You don't have to have it up 24/7 because of how Purity of Purpose works in a fight. So during the fight you don't have it up, but pre-fight booning you do want to pop your Facet of Darkness to help people with getting Fury. So like when we're saying like hey, we're stealthing up, just pop your boons and then that way everyone will be pre-booned.
So basically pre-fight, you're going to be having darkness, and you're going to be having strength, which is the next one Quaggy will be talking about. Those two are going to be up all the way through, up until the point we engage. Once we engage, your scrappers are basically going to be doing boon coverage for you, at least in terms of fury. For might, it's going to be mostly your firebrands.
So the next is fast strength, which is the might one. Do you have this question still, Panto?
No, go ahead. I'll figure it out.
So when you push,
Right here.
yeah, you can ask it if you need it.
No, I've been playing it really differently and for a long time, which is fine. I don't mind changing the way I play. So basically, do Facet of Darkness and the Facet of Strength up until we engage.
Yeah.
So that's really to support my my range work with my hammer.
Yes.
But if we engage,
When we go for a melee engage, I should clarify, melee engage.
yeah, but
That
the
means-
minute but when we go into melee engage, shouldn't I be switching over to Jalis and
Yes.
be more defensive?
Yeah.
So, that's why you have them up until the point where we go into Jalis. So, you're going, we're about to go, I'm calling the stealth, we're going to be going for wells. We're going to stay stealth. As soon as you get in, you're going, pop, and switch.
Okay.
So like something like when you're going into melee, you're gonna basically toss your elemental blast into the crowd that we're going into, and then that's when you use your coalescence of rune, because that way you still have your fury and your might up, and then you switch over to Jalis.
Do you switch over to sword too on a melee?
Yes. Yes.
Once you switch over to Jalis, you switch to sword, and then you pop your skill 4, then your roads, and then vengeful hammers. I'll write it all out for you guys.
Yeah, we also have write-ups of this in the Discord, so that's not an issue. But yeah, there's situations where you keep the faucets active, and then there's situations where you consume the faucets.
So yeah, the next one up to the our final elite skill is Facet of Chaos, and this is the big dragon. There's a lot of this one is a very situational one, because whenever we are going to be using super speed, most of the times your scrappers will provide it for you. So at initial stealth, and then when Atros calls super speed, you actually shouldn't be using your super speeds because of how super speed works. It does not stack.
The reason to use this is to knock enemies away.
Like clips.
Mostly seen in GVG, but there's definitely opportunities to make the argument in open field where, they're rezzing, they're hard rezzing, or some important kill. You turn, you blow them back towards the group.
So that's where the other use of it comes from, is there's potential that you can use it as knockback or negating downs, and that's why it's so important to use it certain time periods instead of initial super speed, which scrappers can provide. It's also a really good skill to use when we need to disengage and Atros calls for super speeds to get out, and then you can pop yours. You got to make sure that whoever you're going to give it to is in front of you, because that's how the skill operates. Chaos release, that one. The elite.
Is the launch 360 degrees or just what's in front of you?
It's what's in front of you.
Think of it as like a cone shape, like a firebrand
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
The 360 is for how far away it is. They're knocked away.
Alright, so now we're gonna switch over to Jalis. So your heal is really nice for you because it will remove conditions. So if you're ever stuck in a situation where you are mobbed, if you're not in a legendary dragon stance and you're in Jalis, you can use your heal if no one else can get to you to try to remove those 5 conditions. Because yeah, it removes 5. The roads is now one of your next big important utility skills as a rev. When you throw it down, it will give AoE I mean not AoE, sorry, will give stab to people that are within this field. It stays down for a bit, and it pulses stab, which is the key biggest factor of the skill. It's a pulsing stab that will constantly be giving out as long as you're inside the road.
Are we, when we do roads, should we like put them, are they supposed to be like all on top of each other? Or like, should we
I mean,
spread 'em out?
basically, they're roads. We're going straight as a melee train. When I'm making this call is for melee. So if you're kicking the road off to the side and I'm pushing towards Steve, you're not doing us any favors.
I'm not pushing off to the side, but what if like the group
It's
is
also
never,
it also does only up to 5 people. So basically, your
Yeah.
party.
so it's okay to put them all stacked right
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
top of each
Yes.
Or else your party won't get it. And yeah, so you don't want to, when Atris does call for initial stab, we're not using this skill until we hit the group. Because by the time we hit the group, stabs will be stripped or like other problems occur, and this is where the pulsing stab comes in, being super great for the group.
It also
Okay,
just gives us away.
Yeah, that's really important. So do not use it as initial stab, even though it's an offensive skill. Just wait till we're in it and it gets us
Correct.
through them and out the other end.
Yep, that is exactly what it is.
Okay.
So
I
the next
usually
skill-
drop it like right when we're outside of melee, so we just follow it in the group basically.
Yeah. So the next skill over is called Forced Engagement. It's chains that, as long as you have something targeted, or if you have auto-targeting available, because I don't have auto-targeting, I just have tab targeting. You have to have something targeted, and when you throw it out, it will hit 5 people that are nearby. So it will hit whoever you targeted and then other people around you. It will taunt them, which means they will lose stab, or if they don't have stab, they will start walking towards you. And so if you're stuck in sword, because there is like a period where we might be walking away and you won't be able to do anything, and you're stuck in sword, and you don't have enough to toss like the roads to get away, you can just start using forced engagement on people, and it will help hold them into us. People that are out of like place or not with the group or no stab. It's just a really nice skill to occasionally use here and there. So then the next skill over is called Vengeful Hammers, and this is another one of the big melee skills of why Rev is super high DPS. When you pop it, it's a channel, and so on your energy bar, you'll notice that there is now a negative effect happening to your energy. And so it's slowly going down, and this means that you will not be regaining energy in the fight, and as you keep this up, you're slowly going to lose energy, which at some point you won't be able to cast certain skills because you use too much energy. But this right here is where you could just keep auto-attacking or using your Sword 2 or Sword 4 in when it's off cooldown, just to continue DPS when we're in melee range. Yeah, it's a big AoE cleave.
Yeah, and one key note here is it actually does boost your physical damage. If you look at the buff, it's 13% damage, and then minus 20% incoming damage and condi damage. So it's a pseudo protection plus a flat damage.
Yeah.
Alright, and then so next is the Elite, and the Elite it's a situational one, and as you play Rev, you'll just start figuring out ways to fit this in, but sometimes if like you're stuck, like a lot of times it's depending on what weapon you have available. So if you're stuck in sword and you know that you're not going to be using a lot of energy prior to a fight and you're sitting at 100% energy, you can pop this before we enter fights, so that way everyone has that 50% damage reduction when you're going in. It's just a very situational skill.
Well, here's a question, because in another guild, we actually always, before a melee push, ask the refs to hit that skill. Always, because it just, 50% damage reduction on that first hit made all the difference between surviving that first hit or not.
We're also not as heavy melee as certain guilds, which is why it's a little bit more situational for us. Because with it being such a high energy cost, it's now a trade-off between your range spike or, hitting this 5-second 50% reduction. So
I guess that's my question, because at that point, if we're in Jawless, we're already headed for melee. Do you want us to save the energy for the roads, or go ahead and spend it and reduce the damage we're taking as we hit?
Save the energy for the roads.
Okay.
So
When you
with it
swap
being-
legends, it goes to 50. Your energy.
Yeah. Yeah, when you switch legends, it is a massive energy, drain. So us being a little bit more ranged oriented, we're not going to be in deep melee the entire time, W keying past every single person. We're going to be hitting, we're going to be spiking, 5-10 seconds, and then we're speeding out so that we can get back and reposition in a better slot. The situational skill would be, and maybe in that retreat, you pop that right of the Great Dwarf if you still got energy, and then move back to your hammer set.
Okay.
So then next,
Let's check it.
the last ability on the list pretty much is above your 1 through 5 skills, and that's your F2, called Facet of Nature. It has 2 different effects depending on what your stance is. For Chalice, if you use it, it will give you stab, and if you're not using it and you just have it triggered, so that way it's has a new icon and it's pulsing, it will do damage reduction, and that's the one where that's where you can get extra damage reduction instead of popping the Great Dwarf stance.
You always want that up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, have it pulsing. Don't use it until you absolutely need to.
Mm-hmm. So that one I'd say is for smalls, wouldn't you say, Steve? Because I always use it when nature calls for smalls. Because when you pop it in Chalice, it gives everyone 3 stab.
Yeah, usually if roads don't go off right or we need more stab, then I'll usually pop it.
Yeah. But
I don't use it a lot. It's more in dire situations if we need it.
But while you're in Dragon stance, the F2 is boon, boon increase, boon duration increase. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
it changes depending on your legend.
Yep. Pop it gives boon duration. Alright, Steve, you want to talk about combos that we should be using?
Yeah, I can go over the basic rotation when we go into a fight. So when you start, you'll want to be in the glint stance, your dragon stance, and your hammer. So your main attack with hammer is your big damage dealer is Coalition of Ruin, which is hammer 2. That's what your initial is when we're first entering a battle. And you can pop your elements as well just for extra damage. And sometimes if you can pop your Facet of Strength because it does a little bit of melee, but I only do that sparingly if I'm just need to clean up downs or something. So after you do your hammer rotation, you swap to Dwarf and Sword, and you immediately put your roads down right when you're about to enter the group, and use Sword 4, which is also an MOAB as well as a lot of damage. So when the Necros have all their wells and things down, you kind of want to try to MOAB them in the wells to do a lot more damage. And once you're officially in melee range, you pop your hammers, the Vengeful Hammers, and you can do Sword 2 and basically just auto attack when you can. And once your energy runs down, you can stay in Sword, but you can switch your legend and put your boons back, your facets. So that's pretty much the basic combat style of the Rev. And then everything else is just situational after that.
So one of the things to know when you are playing Rev is you want to be swapping between your stances constantly. Once you lose energy on it, you want to swap out, because the longer that you're sitting in one, you're just losing more damage potential or more crit potential. So as soon as you're done with the energy, swap out, and it gives you 10 seconds till the other one's back up, and then hopefully by that 10 seconds to re-swap, you've used all the energy that you've swapped into.
And swapping legends also counts as a weapon swap, so if you have specific sigils on, it will pop them.
And at the risk of sounding obtuse, can we go over again when we're just running around and we're kiting? You want us to have Facet of Darkness and Facet of Strength up, and then for just a brief moment before we plow in, we go for the facet of light and facet of elements?
No.
You could just use facet of elements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the facet of light, you just turn it on and off. You click it once, you click it again to absorb. Because one of you said just keep it on all the time so it's faster to get you out of a bad spot.
Yeah, so when you click it once, you get the regen boon. If you hit it again, you basically consume it. So if anything hits you, you absorb and then you heal. You absorb the damage.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah.
What is it? Do you think we should just, when we're just kiting and up and going back and forth, which are the 3 facets we should have?
As a commander, and I'll step in on this one. As the commander, when we're kiting, so I'm not ready to make a melee push. We're still trying to find an opening. I'm waiting out cooldowns. I'm baiting out their bomb. Whatever. I want you to be in darkness, and you're either going to choose strength or you're going to choose nature, because you can't have both up. You can't have both strength and nature up. So if you're Firebrand is really good at keeping might applied to you guys, then give him nature, because you don't need strength, because it increases the duration that and I think I read in the wiki the duration increase, it's like 2 or 3 seconds. So you're basically keeping the might up a lot longer.
3 seconds,
yeah. You're keeping that up longer for him to be able to keep that might applied. If your Firebrand isn't doing it, or maybe he's having to focus more on healing, then drop Facet of Nature and open up Facet of Strength.
Right, so always Facet of Light. Number 2 is Facet of Nature.
Always Facet of Darkness, not Facet of Light.
Okay, I heard 2 different things this evening.
Yeah. When we're talking about Facet of Light, we're talking about if you're in melee.
Okay.
When we're talking about kiting, this is purely for kiting. So again, we're trying to find an opening with the enemies. This is going to be Facet of Darkness, and either Strength or Nature.
Okay, for the Fury and the...
And either the boon extension or might, depending on how well your Firebrand is playing. And this is something where everyone here as a Rev player, needs to just kind of keep an eye on what's happening. If your bar, you don't seem to be hitting as hard, we're talking about here numbers where you're going to be seeing anywhere between 8 and 10k. If you're seeing lower numbers, it is because you're not getting enough might. That means you need to either give yourself more, or you need to talk to your Firebrand and be like, hey, are you okay? Can you give me more might? And if your Firebrand says something like, no man, I have to focus on keeping Atros alive, then switch over and start giving strength, because you need the might. Now, when we go in, finally we've opened up the door, everyone, we finally got some sort of kills, picks, pulls, whatever it might be, and we're ready to go in for the deep bomb, the bubbles, the wells, the immobilizations. Then at that point, what you're doing is you're going to just do a very quick pop. You're gonna, hammer in. You're gonna use your Faucet of Elements if possible, and you're just gonna go 1, 2. You just do it real quick, just a 1, 2, and then switch off into Dwarf, because now you're melee. Dragon has nothing to do with melee. Sometimes you'll be forced to be in Dragon, but for the most part, you want to try to avoid Dragon as much as possible. The reason I say you'll be forced to be in Dragon is because now you're completely out of energy. You've burned everything on immobs, you've done your Torrential Hammers, you've done everything, and now you have 0 energy. It basically forces you to go back to Dragon.
Allow me to act.
And that's when the healing facet becomes
Yeah,
useful. You
that's...
pop that and get yourself out of trouble.
Yeah, keep yourself regen, keep your allies regen. It's not a lot, but 930 heal every couple seconds, pretty good if you ask me. And then obviously it's a 3-second oh shit button in case you do get immobilized or counter spiked or whatever it might be. And I'm going to try to make this as, for you Gallant, I'm just going to kind of explain. You know, there is an ebb and flow. You know, it's a push and a pull when it comes to fighting. So you have to be aware that the enemy group, when you push them, they're going to react, and then they might counter-react by hitting you. If you're caught out, you need to have ways to keep yourself alive, and that's what we're talking about here, is popping that heal skill, the dragon heal skill, because it takes all of that damage that you were supposed to take, and it turns it into healing for you.
Gotcha.
As far as rotation and openers go, we are going to do a little bit of practice. That's typically what we do here. So you guys kind of understand as far as it goes. For our initial kiting, when we're trying to find an opening, you're going to do hammer 2, hammer 3. You could maybe even skip hammer 2 just because it doesn't really reach. But, you know, it's up to you. Steve, you want to pass it back over to me?
A question. So you're going for this build goes for brutality instead of swift termination.
Correct. And the reason why we go for brutality is because this is a very stab heavy, especially with firebrands right now. It's very stab heavy. Swift termination, in our opinion, is wasted when you have the ability to remove stability much easier, because essentially the only way to remove stability is to do a CC, which is taunt, fear, you know, float, daze, stuns, whatever. Now you all of a sudden have this trait that if you have quickness, which you will almost always have quickness because of scrappers, especially now where scrappers actually literally just got a buff today that changed their quickness time from 2 seconds to 2.5 seconds every time they apply super speed, which scrappers are a super speed machine. So you will always consistently have quickness.
Alright, the other difference I saw is you go for core value instead of rising momentum. So that makes that F2 much more useful.
It does, yep. Rising momentum is nice, but again, because you're running with scrappers who are consistently giving you super speed, there is no point in needing that that extra movement speed. It just doesn't stack at that point. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're just going to do a little bit of small practicing here, where we're going to move back over to this marker, and we're going to practice just kind of the rotation that you as a Revenant are going to be experiencing. So if I'm playing Mesmer and I'm going to be calling for pulls on markers, you guys are going to get ready. Here comes the pull in 3, 2, 1. I'm pulling. Give me small spikes, small spikes, small spikes. So this is where you do your hammer 3. Good job. Hammer 3, yep. So the small spikes are going to be your hammer 3, followed by hammer 5. So, guys, get ready. I'm going to be doing my pulls here. I'm going to be pulling on markers in 3, 2, 1. Pulling now, pulling now, pulling now, pulling now. Good job.
So
As
small
you
is 3-5. Okay.
Yep, 3-5. So it's hammer 3, hammer 5. Now, one thing I will say is, again, this is opening up opportunities for us. So you're hitting really hard. You're going to be giving them a nice little just, smack in the head because they got pulled. They got punished for being pulled. This is what we're capitalizing on, is we're punishing the people who got pulled out of position. The other thing that you'll also want to do as a Rev player, and even just as a player in general, is my countdown. Don't go on my, go on like the 1 before, because you have a cast time. You have a delay in my voice. When I speak, it has to be encoded. It has to then go to you. You have to hear it, and then you have to respond. So if I count down, 3, 2, 1, I'm pulling. By the time I've pulled, you've only just heard me say pulling. So go on that 1. Go on that little pause before I say pulling. Because that way, it's coming down when I'm pulling. So if I'm pulling on marks in 3, 2, 1, pulling, you know, go on that 1. Go on that time right before I say pulling.
Plus, Hammer 3 has a 1.25 second cast time.
Yeah, it does.
So you
It
have to
has a little bit of a
compensate for
cost time. But you also have to compensate too, Steve, for people getting pulled into that. You know, there is a time where they got to get yanked in.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm counting it in. It's, you know, here we go. We're gonna be spiking on markers in 3, 2, 1, spiking. Much better. Yeah.
I noticed you can't cast 5 until you're back from your 3.
Yep, you can. But that's okay, because even then, your 3 skill chills, they're going to be sitting in a null field because I'm putting down that null field, which means that they're not really going to be getting many boons, if any. They're chilled, which means that they're going to be walking super slow. They're going to be in that range of the hammer anyway. Okay, so now we'll move into melee. At this point, our scrappers would be giving us stealth and super speed. Guys, get ready. We're going to be pushing into melee here in 3, 2. We're pushing to marks now. Pushing to marks, pushing to marks. Phase smash now, and switch over. Give me stab, and spikes here. Spike, 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 spike. Hammers up, and start using your skills. Oh, there's a low person over here. You can sword 5 over to that low person.
Oh, I forgot the 4 when we started. Gotta do the 4.
Yeah. Alright, we'll come back over to marks. So again, what's going to happen here is you're going to Coalescence of Ruin, so Hammer 2, into your Chalice attacks. Is that right, Quaggy?
Yeah, hold on, I'm typing it all out.
You had it typed up a bit earlier. Hammer 2, if possible, switch to Dwarf.
Yeah, Hammer 2, swap to Dwarf, sword.
Yeah.
Road, sword 4, and then your Vengeful Hammers.
Yeah, it's a lot. So that's why we're kind of running through it. You know, we're going to be doing it as a push.
Yeah, the key is memorizing the order of things.
Yeah, it's building muscle memory because like a lot of this is so new. I mean, heck, I don't play Rev a lot, so for me it's like, oh, okay, what do my skills do? This is building the muscle memory. So, you know, in basic rotation, you want to try to get your hammer before you swap. If you can get off your elemental blast, which is your little dragon breath. Do it. But otherwise, don't worry about it because you know you're gonna focus so much on getting your elemental blast off that you're gonna forget your Coalescence of Ruin, and then you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, you're gonna get flustered.
Yeah, get the main feel of the basic burst first before you worry a lot more about your facets.
Yeah, get in that Hammer 2. So we go into melee. You know, here we go. We're gonna go into melee in 3, 2, 1. We're going into melee. Hammer 2, switch into Dwarf Roads. Now you can do Sword 4 to get that immobilized in the wells. So now we're sitting in a Spellbreaker bubble. We're sitting in our friendly Spellbreaker bubble. This is where all the wells are going to be centered. They're going to be centered right in this tight little area. So we're keeping people stun locked in here, immobed, whatever. Now you're going into Vengeful Hammers and you're just beating people up. That's it. You're just focusing on those main things. You're going to go Hammer, Dwarf, Roads. Just think of it that way. The number 3. Hammer, Dwarf, Roads. And then from there you build out your skills. Sword 4. Sword 4 is your immob. You want to get that off. Most important. From there, get your Vengeful Hammers going. You want to run that energy down. Run that energy. Because when you're in combat, you're going to be building up energy consistently. One thing that these guys didn't mention, and I will mention it for you guys as revs, is once you're in combat, you will be consistently gaining energy unless you're using an upkeep skill. The upkeep skill, Vengeful Hammers, Faucets, those are all considered upkeep skills. So something to keep in mind.
It does have
I know
little
it
arrow
depends.
indicators as well on the skills. If you hover over with your mouse and above the your weapon skill bar, you'll see a 50% and then left and right arrows.
If you guys are okay, Quaggy, you just got ran the fuck over. Holy shit. If you guys are okay to test this out, we can actually go. Bay's got some action going on right now, and we might be able to kind of flood around. So let's waypoint to Gary. And I'm gonna end the recording here. I think we got everything that we need as far as training wise goes.